We may be on the verge of the biggest political scandal, the biggest corruption scandal that's ever touched the White House.
It's putting Joe Biden in the place of where these business deals arguably took place.
The Democrats on these committees have no interest in the truth, no interest in holding the president accountable. This is not about Hunter Biden. This is about Joe Biden.
A big day in the investigation of alleged corruption involving the Biden family. On Capitol Hill, one of Hunter Biden's closest business associates, Devon Archer, answered questions from congressional lawmakers in a closed-door meeting. Mr. Archer reportedly stated that Joe Biden joined his son's business meetings by phone more than 20 times, including meeting with Ukrainian businessmen who were paying for the value of the Biden brand. Mr. Archer's statement flatly contradicts President Biden's repeated insistence that he had nothing to do with Hunter's business dealings. Joining us now to discuss this is Representative Bob Good, Republican of Virginia. Congressman, welcome to the show. It's good to see you this evening, sir.
Great to be with you, Lindsay. Thanks for having me again.
Okay, so it seems like we have contradicting messages here, not only from Biden and Devon Archer, but also from Democrats on the Hill who are saying that Devon Archer didn't say really anything to implicate President Biden, but Republicans are saying something quite different. So what are you hearing?
Well, you continue to have mounting evidence, increasing evidence pointing to the Biden crime family's culpability here. We may be on the verge of the biggest political scandal, the biggest corruption scandal that's ever touched the White House. We've never seen anything like this where the actual sitting president is alleged to have engaged in corruption, influence peddling, bribery. You know, what is the Biden family business for which they would be paid millions of dollars from Chinese entities, from Ukrainian entities, from other foreign entities, many of which are not our friends, they're our adversaries. Even Hunter himself, when it comes to being on the board in Burisma, getting paid apparently $1 million a year, no experience in the energy industry, no particular skills or experience or language ability that would relate to Ukraine. So what has the Biden family done in exchange for the apparently millions of dollars they've made off these business dealings?
So are these transcripts from this closed-door meeting today with Devon Archer going to be made publicly available for the American citizens to read? And if not, do you think that he should be subpoenaed for an open hearing?
Thank you for even just bringing that up, because there are some entities like yours that are taking seriously the historic role of the press to hold all of government accountable, to try to bring transparency before the American people, to pursue corruption, wrongdoing, the truth and the evidence wherever it may take us. And as you know, much of the media has not done that. We should be asking for this to be released, as you said, transcripts of the hearing today. We should ask for the FD 1023 memos to be released to the American people. We should ask for the what has been reported, the couple of dozen recorded tapes, tape recordings of the president, even beyond a couple of those tapes with Hunter's business partners. And you notice that the narrative has changed from the president was the only dad in the country who didn't talk to his son about what he did for a living and about his businesses, to now, well, the president was not in business with his son. That's now the narrative that has changed, because the evidence is so mounting that it's so clear to anyone who's objectively paying attention that the president was involved and aware of what was going on with Hunter's corrupt business dealings.
So, Congressman, who else is there left to hear from in these investigations? I mean, what is next to settle some of these investigations, 3 at least, that are going on right now in the House of Representatives?
Well, I think you'll see more witnesses come forward through the Oversight Committee, through the Judiciary Committee. As you know, Chairman Comer for Oversight has said that they've uncovered dozens of shell companies, LLCs, bank accounts that are for no other reason, seemingly, than to launder or hide or to obfuscate the truth of what has taken place. There's some 170 suspicious activity reports that they've uncovered. They report to us. And so, if you or I had 2 or 3 suspicious activity reports, we would long ago have been the subject of an official investigation. Thank God that the Republicans got control, or the majority given to us by the American people, or we would not be uncovering what we're uncovering, because as you see, and as you've already noted, the Democrats on these committees have no interest in the truth, no interest in holding the president accountable. This is not about Hunter Biden. This is about Joe Biden.
And because of that, there are continued calls to impeach President Biden, Congressman, as you know. And one of your Republican colleagues from Nebraska, Congressman Don Bacon, said recently that this needs to be thoroughly vetted in the Judiciary Committee, pretty much arguing that Republicans should not take the same approach that we saw from former Speaker Nancy Pelosi when she impeached President Trump twice. Do you agree with that? Should this go through the proper committee process in order to impeach Biden, if you all deem so?
I do agree that impeachment shouldn't be a political weapon that is cavalierly or flippantly utilized just for political purposes, like we saw with President Trump. As you know, he was impeached with a week left in his term, where there was no possibility of any consequence to him as president. It was purely but political retaliation. He was previously impeached by the Democrats because of a phone call where he allegedly, according to some, talked about doing what the Biden family is actually demonstrated to have been doing, which is influence peddling, corruption, bribery, that sort of thing. But I would say, yes, correct. We need to follow this trail closely, carefully, investigate it, pursue all the evidence, see where it takes us. However, the president deserves to be impeached because of the border invasion. We don't need any more evidence of the 7 million illegals who he has helped, facilitated, brought into the country illegally, and continues to do that on a daily basis. Thousands coming across on a daily basis. We don't need more investigation for that. We should not be allowing the president to continue that for the next year and a half.
All right, we'll stay in touch. Congressman Bob Good to see you this evening. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Lindsay.
And as we know, a judge last week threw out Hunter Biden's plea agreement, which House Speaker Kevin McCarthy has called a sweetheart deal. The Justice Department is under increasing pressure over allegation that it slow-walked and obstructed the Hunter Biden probe, at the same time aggressively prosecuting President Trump. Joining us now is constitutional attorney Mark Smith, a presidential scholar at the Ave Maria School of Law. Mark, thanks for joining us this evening.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me on.
Okay, so if it is true what Devon Archer, we think, is claiming, that President Joe Biden, vice president at the time, was on the phone at least 20 times with his son, Hunter, when he was having these foreign business meetings, how worried legally should Joe Biden be right now?
Look, it's a bad thing for Joe Biden. Keep in mind that legal cases are like brick walls. You build them brick by brick, fact by fact. Now, for example, we now know that there was over almost 24 times that Joe Biden was on a phone call with Hunter Biden and other people, presumably business associates or prospective business associates, which suggests that, frankly, Joe Biden was there in the room when something happened. Now, as to what happened and whether it was illegal, that's a separate issue. But certainly it's putting Joe Biden in the place of where these business deals arguably took place. So that's an issue for Joe Biden, because remember, initially he was saying he had nothing to do with Hunter Biden's business dealings in any respect. That turns out apparently to be not really true.
Okay, so as president, Joe Biden is conducting the highest levels of international affairs that there are with countries like Ukraine, China, Russia, some of the same countries that his son was in business with. So legally, what kind of implications does that have?
Well, keep in mind that a lot of these things we're talking about, you have to go back in time, because the Burisma deal, these were in 2014, 2015. A lot of these deals were occurring when Joe Biden was the vice president of the United States, when he was actually in office as the vice president. So obviously, if you're looking at a situation where foreign companies, perhaps influenced by foreign governments, are doing business with the son of the vice president, who obviously is touching fingers with foreign policy as the vice president of the United States, well, geez, you got to wonder whether or not there was some sort of concerns or influence peddling going on. One doesn't know for sure, but certainly it doesn't look good when the son of the vice president of the United States is doing foreign business deals, especially when it turns out there doesn't appear to have been disclosures under the Foreign Agent Registration Act, FARA, which for a long time was really not a used law. But after Paul Manafort's conviction and the way the Mueller investigation used it as a weapon against political figures and, attorneys and professionals in Washington, one wonders where all this is going to wind up. But it doesn't necessarily speak well for where it's going to wind up for the Biden family and Joe Biden himself.
Okay, because I do want to ask you about that, because this Foreign Agents Registration Act, FARA, as you mentioned, we know now from Hunter Biden's plea deal falling apart last week that the Department of Justice is actively still investigating Hunter, we think, on this FARA charge. If what Devon Archer is saying is true and Joe Biden was a part of these foreign deals, does that pull, or could that pull, Joe Biden into this investigation?
Well, yeah, certainly it could, because if you think about it, who was on the phone calls that Joe Biden was participating in, and why was Joe Biden on those phone calls? Now, again, think about it for just a second with a little bit of common sense. What credentials, what qualifications does Hunter Biden himself bring to the table if you're looking for prospective business partners in any kind of a deal, including major foreign deals involving millions and millions of dollars. And really, the best argument for using Hunter Biden is his last name, that he's associated with a very powerful individual, the former vice president, now the president, Joe Biden. So really, the argument for getting involved with Hunter Biden is who his family is and who they're connected to. So I would think, why would you bring Joe Biden onto a phone call if it involved business dealings, other than to say, hey, this is a real Biden, this is the former vice president or the actual vice president, and that gives bona fides and credibility to the transaction because, again, hey, having the vice president on the phone call or the former vice president is a good thing from business because it shows that you're connected to powerful people. Always a good thing in business, especially if those businesses are connected to political related realities such as foreign transactions.
Yeah, but bad for the country. Before we let you go, Mark, let me ask you this, because we had 3 House committees today band together to launch an inquiry into what they're calling the Hunter Biden plea deal, a sweetheart deal. Will that change anything? We know that this case is essentially on hold right now.
Yeah, I think it will, because it's clear that the federal judge in Delaware is laser focused on whether or not these foreign business dealings are going to be part of a plea deal or not. Therefore, the Department of Justice will not be entering into a deal unless they're absolutely certain they can do it fairly and to make sure it appears fair. So yes, this is definitely a complicating factor for all involved, including Hunter Biden.